right, I'll admit it, this one's going to be a little bit weird. Today we are talking about square nuts. Now, why are we talking about square nuts? Well, a longtime supporter of the channel, Everett Davis, and by the way, a longtime supporter of the Shopsmith community, we'll come back around to Everett in a bit, pointed out on an old video of mine where I was complaining how much I hate square nuts. And one of the things that I have to just go ahead and come clean with you, if you start playing around with Shopsmith tools, you're going to encounter square nuts. Why? Well, that's a good question. First off, where? If you have Shopsmith casters down on your Mark V or on your power station or even on your Pro planer or your Shopsmith scroll saw, or if you have a crafter station or a power station or even a Sawsmith 2000 table saw, the casters, the bolts are held in place with these stupid square nuts. Also, okay, now this one, maybe you could argue this one. This is a Mark V model 500 rip fence, and up captured inside of the end here is a square nut. Now that makes sense because that's captured essentially inside of a wrench. So as you are tightening the handle, that pulls that threaded rod and down it goes to clamp against the back rail or back face of your 500 table saw. Everett asked, was I not raised on a farm? No, I was not raised on a farm. And went on to point out that the solution for a four-sided nut or a square nut is an open end wrench. And he's right about that. Okay, that's, let's see, what size is that? Is that ½ inch? No, it's not ½ inch. That's 7/16. Yes, a 7/16 open end wrench will fit that perfectly. However, if we flip that wrench around to this face, no way does that fit. In fact, it is not a standard size. I went through all of my standard wrenches. I even went through all of my metric wrenches on the box side. This is the boxed side of the wrench, and they don't fit. Now, what does fit, and what Everett pointed out, is a 12 spline socket. I picked up a set of these from where else? From Harbor Freight. And sure enough, the ½ inch fits that nut absolutely like a glove. So if I wanted to keep these stupid square nuts, then that would be a solution. Well, now it's stuck in that socket. We have more to talk about here before we move on, but I do want to point out that another really silly thing that Shopsmith did for quite a while on the Mark V, where the two end bases attached to the table legs, they used to be countersunk holes and used a special countersunk raise head slotted screw or machine screw or bolt. There is nothing I can say positively about this. And in fact, castings using this are also prone to cracking because as you over tighten that, they're just wedging that casting. Far better is what they eventually evolved to, which is, less expensive, but also better, what you might call a stove bolt or a pan head bolt or machine screw. Now, you might be asking yourself, why do square nuts even exist in the first place? It's good thinking. I believe that they are ancient. I think if we go back in history forever, when Archimedes was inventing the screw, probably the second thing he invented was a nut, and I bet you it was square. I was on the U.S. Patent Office, and I found a patent from March 28, 1842, that references the square nuts that are being used in this application on a lighthouse. And then here, 1847, a ratcheting wrench that's designed for square nuts and square-headed bolts. It's been around a long, long time. Machines that were patented for making square nuts and so on and so on. Yeah, here in 1853, we have a machine that was patented for making square nuts. 1853. Wow, isn't that amazing? Here, 1855. That's actually a beautiful drawing from 1855 on this patent. This one, again, a wrench for tightening square-headed bolts and square nuts. But here's something interesting. also in 1855, a patent for making hex-headed nuts. That's right. Since at least 1855, we've had machines, in this case, the Griffith nut machine, that made hex nuts. So why do they even exist? Well, I can think of maybe two good reasons. The first one is they're cheap. They're very, very easy to produce because you just take rectangular rod, drill, tap, cut, and you got square nuts. Second argument that you could make is because the corners are not cut off, you would have more friction where that square nut meets whatever surface you're tightening them against. I would argue, well, you probably should be using them on a washer, in which case you really don't have more friction. So what is a boy to do? Well, here's my advice. Buy hex lock nuts or nylock nuts. Every single time I can, will replace those dang square nuts with these. These are quarter 20, commonly available. You can buy them. You know, I got a kit that included a whole bunch of them, and that's what I have been going through myself. Let's go back to Everett for a moment. I'm going to link to some information that Everett has shared. He has refreshed and in some cases totally recreated some of the old owner's manuals for us Shopsmith users. He's done this out of the kindness of his own heart, doesn't charge for them at all. Very active on forums and on Facebook. And like I said, he even supports this channel. His name scrolls at the very end of the videos. So I want to give a howdy and a thank you to Everett. I hope you all do the same and change those nuts. All right, make it a great day. What you might call a stove bolt or a pan head bolt or machine screw. What's the difference between a bolt and a machine screw? Machine screws are typically under a quarter inch, and bolts are basically machine screws that are larger. But, you know, not here to debate that either.